Well, my grandfather's name is John Isaac Alexander Weeks, and my grandmother's name is Rosetta Ledlow Weeks. Their parents came from Barbados, not them. They were born in Liberia. Well, my late aunt Aurelia was married to Bayon, and they had a daughter who also named Aurelia, and her name was Aurelia. My father named me after her, and also my Uncle James named his first daughter after her. That's where the name Aurelia and Aurelius come from in the family. James Weeks, Rochefort Weeks, Jefferson Weeks, MONROE Weeks, my father Anthony Weeks, and I had two other uncles who did not go by Weeks, Isaac Davis and Clarence Harmon. Well, usually we spend every Sunday in Crozierville, starting with going to Sunday school and then going to church. After church service, we would go to our grandfather's house and have a meal with he and our grandmother. Spend some time with them, and then we'll go on to our Uncle James' house, where we spend a lot of time just playing around, eating a little bit more, playing games. And we spend the whole day in Crozierville from the time we got to church to maybe late in the night before we went back to Monrovia. That was a typical day in Crozierville. Just being with family and friends, because in our church we had all of our family. Weeks family went to the Reese Memorial Methodist Church, and also the Goodridges, which were your family. And we spent a lot of time, at either our family house and sometimes Jonathan Goodridge's house, visiting them. And that's just how we enjoyed ourselves in Crozierville, just playing around. Of course, the play changed as we grew up, but as kids, that's all we did, just try to have as much fun with each other as possible. Well, I think if you grew up with your parents in Liberia and went to church at Crozierville, you had to participate in the Sunday school programs and stuff. Yeah, I did some. I can't remember any, but I did some Sunday school programming and Sunday school. I didn't sing, I can tell you that. But
I remember that they had they had prizes for different categories, for recitations, for solos and duets and stuff like that.
Yeah, I didn't win any prize. I don't remember winning any prize for recitation, because that's all I did was recitation. I didn't sing, I didn't do anything else. But I did say some recitation.
You came from a gifted family. Most of them could play the organ, right?
Yeah, I studied music too. I played the piano, but I didn't play the piano good enough to do it in the church.
So who were the ones who played at church?
Well, Jimmy Weeks Jr., MONROE Weeks, mostly Uncle James' kids, the two boys, and they still play. They play well. James Weeks Jr. and MONROE. Wow, my father's career. Well, my father, when he came back from school in London, he came back with goods that he wanted to sell. He had brought a lot of like female outfits, hats and outfits, and he started selling those things from his car. And then later on, he got a job with the Bureau of the Budget. I think he stayed maybe a couple of years in that position, and then he started selling. He and his brothers, their wives, and their cousins started Oriole Enterprises, and that Oriole became it spread out. It started with the clothing. They had some wholesale goods that they sold to other stores, and they opened a supermarket. They had a technical branch that dealt with air conditioning and other technical stuff. And they also had a loan service where they give loans to other businesses and individuals. That's basically what he did. He managed the section of Oriole that dealt with the uniforms and the furniture business that were also part of Oriole. The way they started the uniform business, when my father came, I was already almost in junior high school. I think I may have been in the 6th grade or something. And I was going to Peter Harris at that time, Peter Harris Episcopal School, because my mother is Episcopalian, so I was in an Episcopal school. And the schools all you had to wear a uniform to school every day. And you found out that you had to go to a store, buy the cloth, the blue material, the white material, make your pants and your shirt, and then go to school. But the blue material, I mean, both the blue and the white were not very uniform because everybody went as close as they could to a way to go buy the material. And the material was not very always the same. And plus, it was expensive to do that when you go and buy the uniform, the material, and go and get it made if you didn't have somebody who you knew or your parents couldn't sew. So you bought a material. And he saw that as an opportunity to do business. And so he went overseas. I think he started, if I remember right, he started in Japan, where he found out how they could sell ready-made material at a very low cost. That even if you made your material, you couldn't beat the cost. And that's how the business started, really. So they started selling material, uniforms, but you couldn't just sell uniforms to schools. You had to go to the schools and get a contract and make sure that they would ask their students to buy the uniforms after you show them, because you would get the uniforms and go and make samples and bring it to them, and they would look at it and say, okay, yeah, this is good, or no, we want to change something. And after that, once they approved the uniform, then they would sign a contract that said that they would ask all the students to buy that uniform. And that's how it went. Slowly, he started getting more and more schools to agree and sign contracts with Oriole. So in a few years, we had almost, not every school, but I think most of the schools in Liberia, in all the counties, buying uniforms from Oriole. So that's how that started.
So did you work for the company?
All my life. Well, not all my life, but from the time he started our business, as a small boy, I used to be with him in the warehouse, in the store, as I grew up, my duties changed. I used to drive just before school started, when we were stuck in the uniforms, because some schools that were like Rick's Institute, La Quere, and other schools that were far away that either didn't, that had they were on a mission. We had to take the uniforms there for them to sell it themselves. So when I got to high school and started driving, I used to drive with one of the guys to pick up. We had a Peugeot van. I would drive that to Bum Hills, take it to the store he had there, and come back to the Freeport, drive to Habel and Buchanan, come back to Monrovia, and then drive to Banga and spend the night in Banga and come back the next day. That was my every Saturday job when we were selling uniforms before school opened. I was part of the labor force. I was in the warehouse. If I was lucky, I was in the store, but I was part of the labor force. That was his prime thing. One thing Oriole did, we all went to school, went to college, and all his kids. And Oriole also gave scholarships to students in Liberia.
Now you talk about sometimes we talk about the integrity of some of the people who came from Barbados, their children, and I want you to tell me about you going to when you went to somewhere and got a scholarship or something, and your dad told them to give it to somebody more deserving.
Oh, well, yeah, well.
Let's start from the beginning.
That story, what happened was when I graduated from college from the University of Liberia, my father wanted me to work with him, continue working with him. And he made me an offer, which I thought was very low as a college graduate. So I got a job at the Ministry of Public Works. And then I also taught physics at the senior class in B.W. Harris. And I taught physics lab at the University of Liberia. And all my total income was much better than what he was offering me. So I asked him if he wanted me to work for him full time, if he would just add everything up and pay me that. And he told me, no, I didn't have enough experience to make that kind of money. so I stayed where I was. And when I was ready to go to engineering school, actually I started going to graduate school, I applied for scholarship with the ministry, and they gave me a scholarship. And because my father knew all these people, you know, the minister, the deputy minister, he went to them and said, they don't need to give me a scholarship, they need to give it to somebody who's more deserving and who parents could not afford to send him to overseas to school. So I ended up not getting the scholarship, but he did send me overseas to school. So that was it. That's how that happened. Well, I tell you, I'm not saying Aurelius or the Weeks and Goodrich family were the first to open businesses as Liberians, but I think you saw more and more Liberians opening businesses, and you saw the government allowing, you know, making some laws that will make it easy for Liberians to start the businesses or a business. And so I'm not saying that they are the one who started it, but from the time they started a little small business, more and more people started opening businesses. From, like, I know friends whose parents started dry cleaning businesses. I mean, other small business, selling shoes and other things, and starting their own business in MONROE. My father has his own philosophy of how you're supposed to grow up and how things are supposed to go. And his big thing was, he just said, when you are young, you work. When you're old, you go on vacation. I never liked that. I didn't think it was the way to go. Because when you're old, you want to go on vacation, you may have the money, but your body already broken, you can't enjoy the vacation, you know. So we fuss about that. But that was his way of saying it. Another saying of his was, if you make money, you don't try to be making a lot of money. It shouldn't be your focus, because your philosophy should be is not how much money you make, it's how much money you spend. So if you're making $1 and you're spending $1.10, no matter what it is, you're going to be broke. But if you make $1 and you're spending only 90 cents and saving 10 cents for each dollar, eventually you will get the money you need to do what you want to do. And that's something I teach. I taught my kids, and I still teach them that you have to save money and be frugal with your money and not be boastful or try to spend everything you make, you know. So I think that's besides the hard work and working hard for what you wanted to do and trying to make good grades in school and that kind of stuff. That's what I've kept those two things, you know, the hard work and how to manage your money. Well, my father, I consider him, especially now in my age, you know, I consider him a good man. You know, he was a good businessman. He was a good Christian. He was a very family oriented man. And not only his family, he helped people in Crozierville. Anybody he wanted to help that needed help that he could afford to help, he tried to help as much as possible. He was a fair man, but he liked people to be fair with him too. He didn't want you to come and think, oh, you got money, so give it to me. So no, he didn't do that. I think that was the way he carried himself in business and in the church and with his family and, you know, and in the country. He tried to be an example, not only for his kids or his family, but everybody in Liberia. It's just that when she became a senior in high school, I won't say the name because, you know, I'll leave that out. But she wanted to go to the junior prom with her boyfriend, and he bought her the clothes. He bought her everything she asked for, the whole outfit, shoes, everything. And the day of the junior prom, the boyfriend came and she came down the stairs to go to the junior prom. And he asked her where she was going. She said, I'm going to the prom. He said, you didn't ask me to go out, to go to the prom.
Oh, no.
And so she said, but you bought the clothes for me, you gave me the money, you bought the clothes, I got everything. He said, yeah, but you're my daughter. I don't want you to go out in the street asking men to give you clothes. If you need clothes, it's my business to give it to you. But you know the rules. If you want to go out, 1 week before you're supposed to tell me where you're going. And he never did. And she was saying, oh, but you're always out, you're always busy. But that whole thing, to cut a long story short, he refused to allow her to go.
Oh my goodness.
She did not go to the prom, even though she was dressed, and she cried all night. That was one of the funniest stories. We had other things that we used to laugh about with him. He had a bad way of being late for everything. You know, even when we went to church, he would walk into the church and the sermon would be on or something. But we were always late. But he hated you to be late if you were the one that he was waiting on. He didn't like to wait for anybody. But if you were waiting for him, he will always be late. And that was, I couldn't take that. That's one thing I don't do. I'm never late just because of that. He spent his life, his whole adult life, you know, running that business, trying to make it as good as possible and make sure the children got an education, they were good people. Those are the things I remember about him and his family also. Anybody you talk to that knew him would tell you about he's a good businessman. He was a fair man. He paid people what they deserved to make, and they got paid on time. I don't remember anybody who worked for Oreo that said, oh, I didn't get paid, or I'm waiting for my paycheck at the end of the month, or every 2 weeks, or how they got paid. So I think he was a good businessman and a good Christian man. That's how I will remember him. Well, I'm an engineer. I engineering school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And after doing school, I worked part-time with Bechtel, and after graduating, I worked, you know, with full-time with Bechtel. Lately, I was basically doing design engineering at the time, but the last, I would say, maybe 30 years of my career, I've been working in the field. You know, first as a field engineer, and then as the field, the site manager, or whatever we call it at the time, and working mostly overseas. I never counted, I don't think I've ever counted how many countries I work in, but I know I work in more than 16, 17 countries. Our work, if you're working in the field, if you're in the field service department, you go to a country to work, and usually because we're building large industrial complexes, you'll be there for, your assignment would be for 18 to 3 years or more. So we used to get, depending on what the situation where you were, you would get maximum 3 months on, and then you get 2 weeks off, and you go back and do this, and that's how I was, and that's why I was. That was my job. You know, you were overseas. We worked in the country too. We had projects. In fact, my last year I was in the U.S. I was not overseas. Let's start with the challenging part. If you start running the project overseas, the challenging part was dealing directly with the customer and dealing with subcontractors, contractors. I think contractors all over the world behave the same way. You know, they want to get 75% of the money after they only do 50% of the work. So you got to be careful how you estimate the progress, and that's something you have to do, I guess, at the very beginning. You say, hey, this is how we're gonna manage this project. Overseas, it's always exciting to work overseas. You know, you don't know where you will go. Sometimes you're near a big city and you have a lot of things you can do. Other times you're in remote. Like when I was in Mongolia, you know, everything I was in the desert, the Gobi Desert, and we had to build everything. Everything was built from scratch. The airport, the living quarters, I mean, everything. We were not near any city. So you went from you could be in the big city, or you could be in the desert, depending on, you know, because most of them were building cement plants and mines, you know. So it could be challenging to live in an area like that. But what the good thing is, if you were, let's say, in a place like the desert, the Gobi Desert, then instead of staying for 3 months, you would stay maybe two months and then go home for 2 weeks. That's how it was. Yeah, and even there were things you could enjoy, the culture of the people, trying to see if you could learn some of the language, which was very difficult in some places. If you're in a big city, no problem. You got in your car and you went out to restaurants and whatever you wanted to do. Yeah. You know, the thing about it is, the way I see it, I can only take it from my own experience and my own situation. I think one of the biggest mistakes that maybe I made, and I won't say my father, because he always wanted me to be back in Liberia, and I wanted to be back in Liberia. But, you know, people who had the means to send the kids away to school, they did, and they thought they were doing a good thing, and they were. But if you had a business like my father did, and your kids were away, and they didn't go back, your business was gonna die. Because when the family, the seniors went away, then the kids had to be there. We are still struggling to keep our family business going in Liberia. Unfortunately, luckily we have some family that, you know, went back home from after college and experience and working overseas. Still go back home. So I think that's the thing that we need to work on with future generations. That's the way I see it, that we need to, the war didn't help. And I think if we didn't have the war in Liberia, I think most of us would have been home. The war didn't help. So That's what I regret. Yeah, I have gone back to Crozierville and bought some land for myself, and my father gave me a piece of land there. My grandfather gave each of his kids and their family some land. So yeah, some of the Weeks people started building homes in Crozierville, or going back to their parents' home and fixing it up. Because my uncle built a very nice house in Crozierville. Two of my uncles, their kids are doing their best. Ophelia built a nice house in Crozierville. In fact, she lives there now. She doesn't live in MONROE. She lives in Crozierville. Yeah, that's the thing. When those people came to Crozierville from Barbados, I won't say Crozierville because it's not limited to Crozierville.
Exactly.
Because it went all over Liberia. In fact, my grandmother, they settled in Bassa, not in Crozierville or anywhere near MONROE. But those people came with good skills. They built good structures, they could cook, they could make their own wine, they were farmers. So they built the areas very well. The farm, and they build the churches, the homes. And those are the kind of things that are missing right now, with nobody growing up and staying in these settlements in Liberia. So we need to do something about it. Our grandmother, my father's mother, I don't know her too well, because by the time I got to know my grandfather and them, she had died. She died a year before a year after I was born. So I didn't know. The only grandmother that I know was my Ella. She was his second wife, and we spent a lot. She was a nice lady. We got to know her. That was the biggest thing that I remember of her. My favorite, or you can say my favorite thing, go eat her food. Cabbage, split peas with gravy. Biggest thing I remember of her. She was a very nice lady. Mm-hmm. She took good. I remember too. She took very good care of my grandfather. Really good care.
Okay.
Especially when you got that, his illness after the accident. Yeah, she took good care of him. I remember how nice she was. That woman and I never heard. Maybe she complained when we weren't there, but I never heard her complaining too much. He was. My grandmother, I remember he was being strict. He would sit down and talk to him and laugh, and he would come to Monrovia either I would see him to either Uncle James' house or Uncle Richard's place, or he would be there talking, and he used to like to be around his grandchildren. I got to get along with. And then, of course, most of the time I remember him having his, behind the house there was a big farm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he grew cassava, arrow, bananas, plantain, and those kind of things. You couldn't see it from the road. He had a big farm back there. He used to sell even made palm wine back there too. He had a big farm. Most of the people that came on that ship, that's what they did as a living. I remember him growing up was basically from his sons who were there. Would talk, in fact, if we're sitting down talking, they would talk to him and remind him how he get in a hard time about going to school and all that kind of stuff. And because they used to have to walk to White Plains to the high school when they got to that level. You had to walk to school. And I don't know, my father told me when they got back from school, he would tell them, why are you resting? Can't do something. And they going to work, so they never rested. So we are keeping them busy. Yeah, and she worked for the UN. She was the youngest of all the kids, and she spent most of her time when I got to really know her, she was spending most of her time in Europe, in Paris. That's where she was living and working, with the UN, and that's where she had Philippe. Father was from Togo. In college when she died. Yeah, but anyway, and then she died. Philip father got married to a white lady, his mother, stepmother. I don't have. The only thing I remember about my aunt when she came to Liberia was one night I was in the car with her and Uncle James, Uncle James' car, and I was sitting in the back, and she was clipping his nails. So it became like every time she went there, she would do Uncle James' nails for him. They only had two sisters. One was already, the other one died young, and she died young, but not as young as Darling's mother. She died, I think she was in her 30s, late 30s when she died. Darling's mother died in her 20s. Yep, she was very young. Everybody used to like her. I mean, all her nieces and nephews, because I think her funeral, I used to think her funeral was Ophelia. When my father came, my father was a businessman. He and Uncle Monroe had a business together before he left to go to school in England. And they used to, the business was with music. They used to play for all the dances and stuff, They had their own stereo system they used to play. That was the business. And they and their sister bought land in around Logantown area. And then they also, the land that the first building Oriole built on Randall Street, they leased it from them. When my father came to Liberia from England, he brought with him things to sell. A lot of women clothing, hats and stuff like that, Women hats and women things to all kind of people to buy and collect money. And one woman told me, tell Anthony to come collect his money himself. When I say, I said, oh, but he sent me to get the money. And she said, I said to Anthony to come with the money himself. I said, maybe the woman finished paying for the money and she giving me no money. So after I tried my best, and she refused to get the money. She said, he must come for it. He said, I went. And I told him, he said, look, when I say for my money, my temporary give it to you, don't come bring message to me. I said, oh, he knew exactly what was going on. He won't go get his money, he go send me, and then he want me to go force the money. But one of my big job when I was that, being a driver would go to people's houses to go collect money or to deliver goods. Now he already started when I was in school. I think I was in something like, I was in CLA, either in the 8th or 9th grade. And they used to, we used to wear uniform to school. You go to the Lebanese people's store, buy the club. So he thought we were giving Lebanese people money. So he decided that he could do better than that. Not only he could get all the people sizes from all the way from like kindergarten up to 12th grade, and that's how he started. Went to each school and made a proposal. He made a good business plan and made a proposal to the schools, and that's how he started selling the uniforms. And children didn't have to go make uniform and make everything look different, Even the material used to be different, because so he helped to standardize this every school uniform, CLA, convent,
everybody.
Yeah. So that's how Oreo started. And then they built a building on Randall Street, and they put on Randall Street was not the uniform building. The uniform building was on Kim Johnson Road. The Randall Street was most of the furniture. They sold furniture, yeah.
Okay.
Furniture and appliances. I want a Zoom call. She leaving just now? Okay. Okay, I can't see her. I can't talk to her. Yeah.
Voice here, Phoenix.
Oh yeah. I know our kid's big now, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
They are really big.
How old are they now? I know our first
10,
daughter.
actually, I think.
Wow, 10-year-old, huh?
Oh, am I on the Zoom call?
Yeah. Oh, you got another cake?
Yeah.
And like I said, Oreo eventually went from just selling uniforms, and they added they didn't do much clothing other than for the uniforms, and then later on appliances, and then in a few more years, they added even wholesale alcohol business, and they had the Kim Johnson, not Kim Johnson Road, but Sinker. They had the what you call it, the supermarket. They had a supermarket there too.
So I mean, that's huge.
They used to affiliate with Safeway in the U.S. for supermarket. They used to wholesale Beck's beer, wine, and that kind of stuff. They went back into operation. Built one of the warehouse in the Freeport. In the other supermarket stuff, the drinks, they could just get it up the ship instead of bringing it to, out of the port, and input duties until they were ready to take it out of the port. I mean, with shipping things out of the warehouse, then you will fill this form, and then it would tell you how much you had to pay on it, and then you pay it to the government, to the Treasury Department, and that's how it worked. When the war came, my father was, when it escalated into Monrovia, he was in London negotiating he was shipping furniture. I don't even know if they ever got the money back. But the war, I mean, when we took over and tried to restart Oreo back in, I think we did that 2000 and my father died 2008. The last day of 2009, 2007. His birthday was December 6th, and he died December 31st.
Oh, okay.
And then that was 2008. And then around about 2010, I forgot what year, I went home, and me and Rochefort and Milton, and we started to put Oreo back together. Yeah. Well, the government refused to give us the warehouse. They had just given it to one Lebanese. Never tried to do it because, I was mostly working overseas, in the U.S., and I was working overseas a lot. The only person who was there was Rochefort at the time. So we never really got back into Oreo the way it was. I've forgotten the woman's name. She told me, I used to go with your father, but the only thing I learned from him was how to economize. So I said, no, that's not what you learned from him. That's not all the only thing he got from my father was how to economize. I said, no. I said, because I remember going to that apartment and laying carpet, putting furniture, putting refrigerator. That was she was living. He was fixing her apartment. I took the stuff from Oreos. The carpet, we laid the carpet first, cleaned it up, then we came, put the furniture in there, put mirror. I remember this particularly, he had this, it was center table, but it was actually a stereo. If you didn't know it, he could have gotten it from Germany. And my first time seeing something like that. I loved that stuff in his house. And then I think it was vice president at that time, Tauber, went, I don't know where he went to the store and saw it. But by the time he decided to buy it, that he wanted it, that thing was gone to the woman's house. So my father took the one that he had in his house and give it to him. Couldn't get the new one, the used one from your husband. What you gave him because you didn't have another one. I don't want to the girlfriend apartment. I graduated from LU first. I went to LU. My father said, I'm going nowhere till I graduated from LU. I wasn't coming to go to school in America. So I graduated from LU first. When I went to Michigan, I went there to do my graduate work in physics. My degree from LU was physics major, math minor. But when I got to University of Michigan, I got a little part-time job working in the placement center. And the first time we were doing the scheduling people to interview for jobs for all these companies, there were 300 companies. I'll never forget this thing. 300 companies were coming, and only 2 were interviewing people with physics degree. And the other one was a big engineering company. I think it was Foster Wheeler or I've forgotten now, but yeah, I think it was Foster Wheeler. So I said, no, I'm not going to go get no physics graduate degree. I can't get a job, you know.
Working?
I was not partying, I was working. So to make sure somebody else could pick up the mail. In terms of my uncles, I spent more time with Rocheville Weeks family because his kids were more my age, you know. And then the next family that I spent time with was Jimmy Weeks, because you know, again, that it found is Uncle MONROE kids. Not only were they a little younger than me, we're not that much younger, but living in Bongmai, so I didn't, and then the mother died very young. And that's when I got to really know them because each of his brothers helped. You know, Uncle Richard took. In fact, Lucretia was actually like his daughter, and the female daughter, and then I know her, Mrs. Whatever her name, Ross. Didn't Ross, that mother was her family. She helped to take care of some of the kids. The boys were at the grandmother's house for a while, her mother, and Uncle MONROE. He decided when his brothers were forming Oreo, he decided at first he was going to be part of Oreo, but he decided he wanted to do his own business. So he started the money from the lease. He took his share out in cash to start his business, and he started a transportation business. And it was very good for a while. It was very good. Everything, you know, as those things happened with first the coup and then the war, so you know, everything just got messed up. You know, Uncle Richard was president of the university, and then the minister of state, and later on he became head of the maritime. Uncle James, he started the Ministry of Economics. I think, economics. I've forgotten what they call it at the time. Yeah. And then later on became Minister of Finance.
Okay.
And when he left that, he started his own business too. He got a big farm in just outside of Swain. He used
okay.
Yeah, he used to have palm oil and palm. We had I think one part of it had rubber, but it was mostly produce that he wanted to build. Because he used to sell oil. He used to produce oil palm, oil. Of course, Uncle MONROE was also a minister. Yeah, for Reeves, and then he became a pastor. He left Reeves, the Methodist Church sent him to. I know he was pastor also in Marshall. That was he met the mother of his second two kids. Yeah, and Uncle Jefferson, he had one daughter and one son. Othniel was his son. And then, of course, Uncle James, Uncle MONROE, all that. We already talked about his sisters. And my grandfather had two other sons that didn't go by his name. Actually, they were in Clarence HARMON. All those guys are dead now. Yeah, Uncle Clarence, I know one of his sons. I met one of his sons in Ghana when I was working in Nigeria. And his daughter, I met a daughter of his after the war. I found a job for her in Liberia. My father, I remember my father was the fact that he was a hard worker, but what his main thing was education.
Okay.
He used to give people scholarships, to go to school. Yeah, he used to he was not only supporting his children in school, but he supported to go to various schools and people and kids who were doing good, who they are, and then he would offer them scholarship through the school. He was big into education, and not only for the children, but he gave scholarships to children going to a lot of schools in Monrovia, especially. No, actually in Liberia, because almost every school that he sold a uniform, he contributed to a scholarship there. The dead they had a what they call an Oreo scholarship fund. Almost every school that they did business with that they were selling uniforms for or to, they had at least 4 or 5 students on a scholarship. And not only the mission people, but anybody who needed it. Yeah.
How's your mom?
She's doing fine. She in New York for the summer.
Oh.
Soon Nauma got that
The COVID vaccine?
Yeah, she had been wanting to go somewhere. She felt like she was in jail. So she been in New York since the end of March.
Oh.
And she said she's staying at after when it's like getting cold. Summer resident. She go, "Oh, come there so she can always have fun there." And my 3 nieces there too, so she's doing great. My time, I'm very expensive. I'm not cheap. I was saying the bill, it would be expensive, it ain't cheap. Well, my father, the reason the hip thing was, if you send the kids abroad and you actually particularly you feel like you lose them because they wanted to work overseas, and by the time you start a business, your kids overseas, it'll be hard to bring them back to do the business. So you have to let them grow in the business all through college, and then go and then come back to work for the business. That was his thing.
That's okay.
That's how he saw it. He saw it as if the kids go to school in America or anywhere overseas. Because I remember when I was in high school, there was this Japanese guy who told my father he would give me a scholarship to go to school in Japan. And my father said no, he didn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't go to, that's why I have my education in Japan. That was his thing. He felt like your business would die, your children don't know the business, who you will leave it to if they don't know anything about it. You can't bring them when they, part of it, I think he was wrong, but I just telling you what his feeling was. If the kids go to school in Liberia or overseas, they learn the overseas where in the meantime, they don't grow up, see how you work in the business and all that kind of stuff. And by the time you get old and die, the business will almost die with you. And, and that's that was his way of thinking.
It was learning the business from the ground up.
Yeah. So I started working. I remember, I always tell people this story because I remember when I was not even a senior in high school yet. And we had uniform store of course, 2 in Monrovia, and then we had the uniform store in Boncana, in Bomi Hills. Then we had the uniform store in Habel, one in Buchanan, and one in Banga. And my job, just before school opened, I was working with him. Every Saturday, I'll be at a Freeport to that warehouse there, 5 o'clock in the morning. In fact, we'll work Friday night till late. We will put all uniforms for Bomi Hills in the Peugeot van. Mm-hmm. And then I would go there in the morning about 5 o'clock with one of the other guys. I would drive that van to Bomi Hills. We'll count all the uniforms to the guy who are running the store. We'll collect all the money. I'll come back to the Freeport. By that time, the people who were there, they finished filling the pickup truck. And I would take that pickup truck. I would go straight to Bassa, drop the uniforms there, collect the money, and then come back. On my way back, I would stop to Habel, do the same thing, and then come back to the Freeport and give him all the report, including the money. I would take that van and go to Banga. Every single Saturday, that was my job. So I remember Devin Walker and I were getting married. They were having the maidens' eve, and they were right by my house. My grandma used to live at the time. And I came back from Banga he told me to bring some uniforms back for one school that were wearing the same kind of uniform. I ain't remember. So the car was full with uniform. I parked that car in the street, went to that party, came back. The people finished breaking into the car. All the uniform gone. All the car damaged, but all the uniform, everything gone. He told me he would pay for it. He started cutting my paycheck every month. Every month he cut my paycheck. Okay. Then when Edwin Cooper was his grandson, Edwin Cooper then started when they opened the bank.
Edwin Cooper was his grandson.
Mm-hmm.
Your father's grandson?
Not grandson, his grandchild.
Oh, his grandchild. Okay.
His grandchild. His godchild.
His godchild. Okay.
Godchild, yeah. Because Edwin Cooper's father was
You
my
talking about
godfather.
Edwin was married to Farah.
Yeah.
Okay.
His father was my godfather, and my father was his godfather.
Uh-huh.
So when Edwin was opening the bank, he and those, I've forgotten who were the guys. My father, I was in America. He sent me, he called me. He said you gotta invest in your brother. You call Edwin my brother. Bank. So I said, you investing? He said, yeah. I said, how much you investing? He said, I think I'll put about 20,000. I said, well, I don't have that kind of money. He said, okay. He said, how much you want to put? I said, okay, put $10,000 for me. I'll pay you. He said, okay. So he put $10,000 in. And that was a long time. So when the coup happened, he came to Liberia. He said, Aurelius, you owe me money. I said, what kind of money I owe you? He said, you told me to put money into the bank, into Edwin Bank, and put the money in. I said, yeah, but our investment. He said, but the investment got lost. I said, yeah, because our investment is, yeah, if it lost, it lost. If you make money, make money. He said, no, you owe me. So I said, okay. You remember the money you used to put in the bank, said you cut my paycheck, half of it you put in the bank? I said, you give me my bank book, let me go. Well, I get the money. Yeah.
Because that money was lost.
Yeah. So he said, but the money go. I said, well, I see principle. So,
you are your father's son. You your father's son. No lie.
He was sorry. He won't tell me to
thought
pay
he was
money.
sick.
Yeah, I'm gonna pay him, but he won't pay me back. I'm not begging you.
Oh my.
My savings book, let me go get the money, then I'll give it to you. Because I had no proof that he was putting any money in the bank for me anyway. I never saw the savings book. He had told me, yeah. I think I saw it one time. He showed me one little red book with my name on it, that savings book. And that was it. I never saw it again. So whether the money there in the bank closed or not, I don't know. He told me it was an automatic deposit. Every month that money was going in that bank book. And when it grow, I'll pay him what I owe him, then the rest for me. I never saw anything. Yeah. We had that conversation.
I tell you.
The brother had to laugh at it because he knew
he couldn't get out of that one. He couldn't get out of it.
Yeah. Your cousin Jonathan was part of Oreo. He was one.
Oh, really?
Yes, he was. He ran the financial section of Oreo. They used to get small things. Yeah, and he was in charge of that. So he had stick in Oreo. You know, he was one of the founders of Oreo. When we started Oreo, because when we were trying to get Oreo back going, we called them and we asked them to send any of the relatives to Oreo who they trusted. We want Jonathan Goodrich children to be part of Oreo because he was a big part of the company. I think building a house in Crozierville myself when I did this. So exactly that's what my father gave me education. Yeah, he refused for me to I was getting a scholarship because when I was getting from college, I was so vexed with him. I told him I don't want to work with Oreo anymore because he would take my money and talk about putting it in the bank. I don't get no money. So I got a job with Public Works. I was working at Public Works. I was doing part-time. I was working full-time. I was doing part-time work, teaching lab work for freshmen at the University of Liberia. And then I was teaching freshman physics at P.W. Harris. My father wanted to give me, I'm going to go work for him for full-time for less than what I was making. I said, I don't want your job. So I told you, I said, you gotta pay me my money you've been getting from me first. He said, no, that's not a deal. You owe me money. So public works were gonna give me a scholarship to come do engineering. My father found out, but hey, he went to public works. He went to
Winston?
No, not Winston. Yeah, Winston.
Richards.
And Winston Richards and to
Tucker.
Gilbert Tucker. He said, my son doesn't need any money to go to. You're gonna give it to somebody who need the money. I'll put you. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then he sent me to school. He gave me scholarship. He gave me, not scholarship. He gave me the money for to pay my tuition, and the money, enough money to buy food. He said anything else, I'm gonna go find a job.
You can't help me with to just record cussing Tom Bailey for me. I beg you there.
No, no.
I beg you there.
No.
I thank you.
Our house, we all had to take it because we had two old ladies there, my mom and Brenda mom. As soon as my mom had a vaccine, she said, you always been telling me when I get a vaccine, I get trouble. I had to send her somewhere. I had fast. I think 1 week after that woman got a vaccine, she was in a plane. I said, but you go alone. I can't take you. I'm busy. She said, I can. She was on her little wheelchair, the poor in the plane. She got there, and her nieces picked her up, so she was all right. Behind, she was too happy to go. She was gone. In fact, friend of mine told me she want me to sell her to what she want to do. She want to go to Las Vegas. How you know in Las Vegas? You got boyfriend in Las Vegas. She said she will find one. Who knows you get? The woman said she want to go to Las Vegas. Who will go with her? Yeah, I don't mind going there, but I want to go talk to her, record it. Yeah, give me the exact questions you want from her. You go, yes. I'm leaving. And when she come here, see my mom and my mother-in-law, oh my God. You don't want to say that by that. Yeah, we don't. Yeah. So. Like I said, we're turning into the Crozierville reunion. That one. Because right now, we had our reunion in Liberia in 2012. And all my children are the best thing I could do. All of them I took all of them to Liberia, and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed themselves there.
Okay, so we're making progress. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
When you finish talking to Tom Bailey and she tell you the time, just let me know.
Okay, I will.
I will just go there.
Yeah, I know. I will.
I can contact her after you talk to her and let her know what.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll talk. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Don't be a stranger now.
Take care.
Good friend, come for I say hello. I want to see her.
I will.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.